meeting to order for the Economic Development and Growth Committee. So as far as we know, we're going to turn it over to the planning board, Ken or Catherine, and see what they want to do from there.
Yeah, before we do that, let's take a roll call. Bob Sheehan,
Present.
Lillian,
Here.
Rob, Rob, Jason, here. Jim is here. Jay,
Yeah, I'm right here. I see Brian Hofschild, Bill Porter.
Here and here.
Bill,
Yes.
and Brian.
I'm here, Jimmy.
Okay, great. All right, so there's a quorum on both.
Yep.
Both
And
board
you
and
and Lily, you and Lil, what, you gonna count yourself on both tonight, or you gonna pick one and the other?
Well, I'm not sure we need to do that.
We want to do combined meeting minutes?
Yeah, I think that's sufficient. Plus, it's being recorded.
Yep.
So Ken, I'm in favor of turning the meeting over to you right now to go through the process.
Sure. Good evening, board. I'm going to turn on the camera because yesterday I was on at the planning board meeting and we were all, circles with our names. So now that I see some folks on the screen, I'm going to turn on my camera. Well, it's good to see all of you virtually and now meeting Bill and Brian. I know of Jay, but obviously you know that we're here to do a project with DLTA funding. So I shared with Jay and the planning board a scope of services for this DLTA project. It amounts to about $7,500. And what we put together was a scope that accounts for an understanding of the request by the town administrator and the select board. Specifically, it was to address mixed use districts within the town and also looking at the master plan. This is not an update to the master plan due to the amount of budget that was approved for this. However, understanding that the work will result in a report of areas within town that mixed use was identified within the master plan and within the scope of within the request by the town administrator, as well as any proposed bylaw changes. I know the planning board is currently working on examining bylaw amendments at the moment with regards to the rezoning in certain areas of town, as well as examining possibly any changes of uses that could be also included in that in those bylaw amendments. So with that said, this initial meeting was really to kind of begin the process by which this committee and or this group of people in this room, which could also include all the planning boards. I wouldn't suggest that that's the case. Economic Development and Growth Committee is charged with, it was born out of an idea in the master plan many years ago. So I would suggest that the inclusion of members, I'm glad the planning board is here, and if they want to participate, and as these are open meetings to the public, and they would be invited to these meetings, it would be we can examine that. I don't have the ability to share my screen, but so I'm just going to go quickly over the scope of services. This
You want
probably,
us, Ken, do you want us to see if Kathy can give you permission to share your screen?
sure, if that's possible.
Kathy, you on right now? I know, she just called me a minute ago. I'll just call her quick. Can you give Ken Cormier permission to share his screen, please?
Yep, I'll do it right now.
Thank you. Right.
Thanks, Kathy. So with that said, I'm gonna just quickly share my screen. It's a document that, once I get that permission. Let's see. Can you see this? It's very large. But this is the scope of services that you've seen and that Jay initially had asked us to prepare or to furnish for this initial meeting. As I mentioned before, this is a project that is born out of a request by the town administrator and the select board. But obviously will include this committee, and if because it involves the master plan, would include components of some of the responsibilities of the planning board. And as I was mentioning earlier, as the planning board is identifying bylaw amendments and map amendments for future town meetings, it kind of goes in concert. So this, I think, could help supplement some of the ideas behind some of the rezonings that they're looking at. So the effort for this particular project is to, and you can read it on the screen, evaluate how mixed-use development is described in the master plan, review existing uses and zoning regulations throughout the bylaw and map, identifying types of desired uses in a possible new district. And that was a request from the town administrator, just to see where the town is within regards to its current zoning bylaw and the types of uses that are allowed within the commercial districts. Clarify differences between the proposed zone and mixed-use development overlay district. I think that's also important, understanding that that we clarify the use and for both the planning board and for the town as they explore these rezonings, understanding the differences between an overlay district and a use district, which a use district is similar to like your residential, single family unit zone, or your commercial, business, industrial. And then your mixed use overlay and your village center are overlays. So that's plopped right on top of your zoning district. Developing and refining proposed language for a mixed use zoning district. Again, you have language in your current bylaw which is specific to an overlay district. Is this something the town wants to explore? I think this process will allow us to discuss that and address that. Examining where in town these types of uses could be found, and assist with researching TIFs and which are tax increment financing, or special tax assessments as means to attract businesses. A measure of success would be successful identification of mixed use development types and where they should be developed within the town boundary, and ways to entice that type of development. And it would be brought forth through a report of inventory of those businesses, best practices and components needed for municipal grants. And, obviously I'm here to also assist the planning board, not necessarily through this particular process, but to address any zoning map or bylaw amendments. I think the important thing here to note is that, a lot of the work that we do and that consultants do are specific to town needs and the ability to attract grants to either do further studies or, do maybe a MassWorks grant or some sort of other grant. And I mean, I can already foresee based on, what the product of this is as I assisted another town, the ability to apply for a grant through mass development, and they had a real estate technical assistance grant. And that could be very helpful with regards to tax increment financing and special tax assessments, especially if the town is exploring ways to fund infrastructure for new business coming to town. So that's the general idea of the scope. Again, I think I was going to use this initial meeting knowing that we had a good crowd to address that, identify the committee to, help steer the project, whether it's just this Economic Development and Growth Committee, or it's also jointly with the Planning Board. Either way, it's helpful. I think on the Economic Development and Growth Committee, the fact that you have 2 Planning Board members on it could already, I think, be sufficient. But that is kind of the general trajectory of this project. The project does end at the end of the year. So we're going to have some robust, meetings scheduled for this committee to review products and data that, we'll be putting together. I think as Jay also mentioned in the beginning of the call, you'll probably be seeing us a little bit more virtually with regards to some of the other grants that the town was just awarded, unrelated to this. But it's, I think it's good to have an understanding that all of these various items and these tools and funding that the town gets from granting agencies is very helpful to create a common communication coming out from the town that you're open for business and that you're exploring these various ways to fund infrastructure and to invite certain types of businesses to come to town. So that was my general spiel. I don't know if there are any questions related to that.
Yes, Ken, if I may.
Sure.
Jim. Okay. To move forward for everybody's comment, what's the definition of mixed use?
I think we need to have an understanding. I think the perspective is going to be different for everyone, right? So, if we're to use the definitions you've already established in your master plan, I think understanding that, and again, so you may be working off that definition or the definition that was established in the request from the town administrator that suggests that you have commercial on the bottom floor and residential on the top, or something of that kind of mechanism where you have multiple uses in one building, that kind of description.
Correct, and I would agree with that. It's
okay.
It's business, commercial, not industrial, but business, commercial, retail, and residential mixes, whether it's in the same building or within the same cluster of buildings.
Right.
And as we discussed before, we have the overlay in the business district of the Five Corners area.
Mm-hmm.
And just for the rest of the audience here, the stumbling block we have to accommodate that type of use is usually in a compacted area, is utilities, having both water and sewer. ideally, to be able to accommodate that. And there's really no areas in town that accommodate both of those utilities, including the Five Corners area. Water ends right basically at the town line, and sewer continues on to the Finns Hill area. New Ludlow Road, we have water, and that's about it.
Mhm.
The planning board is talking about proposing to create a business zone on the East Street corridor, because some sections of that corridor has water. It has one of the two essential utilities. So those are areas there that we could potentially zone at the same time of businesses putting the mixed use in. We're kind of hamstrung on how we do that. You know,
Yeah,
if
I
this
think-
is the starting point to go ahead and rezone, and then go after some grants to bring in the utilities to accommodate the rezoning, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think this report will lay out a plan, and you know, it obviously will examine these issues, Jim, and being privy to the conversations that the planning board is having with regards to the rezonings that you're exploring. That's very important to note with regards to infrastructure. The town administrator's request was also to address ways to possibly fund or allow for incentivizing businesses to come to town through tax increment financing or special tax assessments. That'll be explored in this report, maybe just in a general sense, but I think it's important to note that, you know, obviously understanding the infrastructure capability and capacity of the town at the moment, you know, maybe certain types of uses could be explored that create an additional, some additional tax payers in town. But yeah, exploring both the current inventory and you know, the proposed uses that could be supported by the current infrastructure, knowing that it's limited to begin with, and then identifying the avenues of which to achieve that, like you mentioned, the rezonings. I think granting agencies will want to see that, you know, your master plan identifies it, and your master plan does. Your land use update that you did in 2016 does. Yeah, and this document will also. So I think it's very helpful for the board to understand now, where understanding also the initiatives by the planning board, how they move forward. And I think this is the first step.
And Jim, in regards to New Ludlow Road, you're right, they have water, no sewer, but I've been told they have natural gas over there, and I've been told they have natural gas on East Street, Granby, up to West Street, Ludlow.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's very helpful. Yeah, so, you know, working with DPW to examine capabilities of current infrastructure, that's important to note in any examination of economic development. You know, probably some new mapping could be helpful with this exercise. But, you know, I wanted to initially get the committee, or at least who would be involved, to have this initial meeting, and then maybe secure some dates going forward, so that, you know, I'm working alongside you to come up with a product. As I mentioned before, I don't think that the all planning board members have to be present. If, you know, Jay and Lil, who are a member of your committee, your Economic Development and Growth Committee, if they, maintain the ability to attend these meetings. I think that could be helpful, and then they can report back to the planning board. But yeah, I guess if there are any other questions, there are going to be some conversations that we're going to be having over the next couple of weeks and months to understand infrastructure needs, to understand community sentiment that you may have heard with regards to the ability to have certain types of businesses, and reviewing the town documents again will be helpful for this, especially with regards to economic development. So that's how I proceed or see this project proceeding.
Well, do you propose putting together a project plan,
Yeah,
step
and
by step?
so step by step, we can put together a scope, knowing that we have the months of September, October, November, and December. It really doesn't have to be adopted by any board, because it's not officially a master plan chapter, which would normally be adopted by the planning board. It will exist as a document for the town, and it's again one of those documents that you will market to your funding agencies for specific initiatives that the town may be exploring. So with that said, putting together a project plan, and I think we can definitely delve into that at the next meeting, and also talk about some initial findings that I'm currently putting together, and some demographics that will help support the plan.
Are we going to address the Westover Metropolitan District Commission properties that are along East Street and other streets over by Ludlow, where the noise abatement area is, which has been shrunk? And now Westover Metropolitan District Commission is looking at leasing some of the land out, but it can only be leased out commercially because they have a ban on residential properties, because they originally bought them as residential, and the Department of Transportation says no more residential, it can only be commercial or industrial.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important to note. We can definitely explore that. I know the planning board, having the conversation with the planning board, and the planning board looking at that area for rezoning based on, some of the previous findings. That's definitely something that we can address in the plan. I think, again, the plan won't necessarily address that in focus. It's going to address the mixed use types, which would be found on your corridor, your overlay corridor. But I can definitely, we can at least address that within the plan in a sort of way that, shows that the town is serious about exploring the rezoning due to the various nature of the Air Force Reserve Base. So definitely, Jay.
Well, when we get to that, I would recommend that we invite John LeBearer in, because he's Granby's representative to the Westover Metropolitan District Commission. And from what I'm getting, they got some money over there they can spend to develop some of that land commercially, but they're not going to invest any money until it's zoned properly for their needs yet.
I think that that'll be very helpful. Another reason for this report is to connect the town to those types of people. And it sounds, Jay, that, as a town resident, he's part of that. But, if there are other entities that are helpful to the town to invest, I think that's, that's definitely to be explored. So, if there's no more comments, I think, again, this initial meeting was to meet everyone, and it's nice to see the faces and match names to faces. with regards to the committee that I'll be working with, but also determine, and the planning board can determine this at the next meeting, if they want to continue having joint meetings as both boards being involved, or if the committee, the Economic Development and Growth Committee, is sufficient with the 2 planning board members that would also be attending. Normally, I would suggest that way, just so that scheduling may be easier, to not include another board who would need to have a quorum to participate. That's just my 2 cents.
So Ken, you're saying the members would be all of the Economic Development Committee,
Mhm.
plus representing the planning board would be Jim and myself.
Yeah, and I think that would be sufficient. And I think, Lil and Jim's engagement with this would be to report back to the planning board. Obviously, I'll be there to assist, but to understand the role of the planning board when this report is finalized, and when this becomes a town document. So yeah, that's what I'm suggesting, Will.
Okay.
Okay, suggestion, well noted. At our next meeting, we'll have a discussion amongst the board members and see who's available to do this. I'm not necessarily, I know Lil and I sit on both boards, but I'd like to have full board input on who they'd like to see sitting on
Sure.
this other committee to discuss this.
And just
In other words, I'd like input from the whole board.
Yes.
in just a matter of note, because I know Ken probably doesn't know that, but Mr. Bill Porter sitting there is one of our Board of Assessors, so we can get some things for taxations and stuff he might be able to help us with.
Oh, he's going to be my best friend.
Well, I just tell you, I throw it out there because I didn't think you knew.
Well, that's very helpful. And Brian, are you represented from another board or just on this committee?
I'm on a few other boards, but I'm not representative of anything.
Okay.
I'm retired.
He's a 15-year Board of Selectmen, so he's Father Time.
I just lost 6 years.
What'd you have, 21?
Yes,
Is it 21? 21 years as a Board of Selectmen.
damn fool.
You want your cherry Coke now or later?
Yeah, so, I think, we can use the time to figure out, when our next meeting is. I think to also add to this is economic development I'm also working with the town of Belchertown on not necessarily a similar project, but they're doing an update to the master plan, which involves a little more input and insight. It's a little more robust as far as the project. But I do think that this project is going to be important to the town, and the engagement of the various people in the room, getting to work with the planning board bi-weekly, and it's great to see their involvement. So I have no doubt that we're going to come up with a great product that represents the insight of all of you and your responsibilities and your connections to the town. But yeah, so I know that Jim wants to address the planning board and see if it's not Jim and Lil, if there are other members of the planning board that want to sit on this committee, that we can do that. And maybe we can do that after and have our next meeting after that meeting to determine the final committee members. So maybe, Jim, I can suggest a date after that meeting to be the date of the next meeting to be the day after the planning board meeting.
That would be great.
Okay. So yeah, if it's okay with this committee, who I will be working with, I think the next planning board meeting was scheduled for the 28th of September. Is that correct, Lil or Jim?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so what I would suggest is the 29th for the next meeting of this, and we'll really get to work with this committee for this project, and we'll really get to work after we identify who's going to sit on that. So if there are going to be other planning board members that will join that meeting, they'll know that it's also Tuesday the 29th. So we'll just ensure that that is shared, and we'll post accordingly. Yeah, if there's no more questions, obviously Catherine's on the call too, just in case this went a little over. I didn't intend for it to go too long, just because this is my initial meeting and we're presenting the scope and kind of talking through the projects. As meeting now through Zoom, the town needs, I'm able to jump on another call right after this, which I will be doing. So it's yeah. So I'm hoping that the next couple of weeks and months we're going to come up with a great project. But if there's no more comments, obviously I'm available by email, or you can call me, and I'll return your phone call. And then I probably will also create a Dropbox that the committee will be able to, kind of have at its disposal, all the documents that I'll be working off of. And, if there are important documents that you can share, Bill, I know that I'll be reaching out with regards to some parcel data that will be very helpful. Maybe the most recent parcel data specific to land use types and understanding, where those types of land uses are within town. Because the last time that was done was 2016. So maybe there were some changes, maybe not, but I think it's still helpful. But yeah, in the next 2 weeks, I'll be sharing with the committee a scope, a more fine-tuned work plan, as well as some initial findings and just kind of, I think, a trajectory for the product.
Okay, that sounds good, Ken. Does anybody from the planning board have any questions or concerns?
I just have one question. Ken, what are we calling this committee?
We can call it the economic.
Well, we're not in any position to put a committee together. I think we're just putting representatives.
You can call it a working group, the DLTA project working group, or economic development DLTA project working group, of
There you
which, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
It's not as
Anybody
inspiring.
else? Anybody else from the planning board have any comments?
I do not.
I'm all set.
I'm all
Do you have
set.
Jason with you?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Anybody from the economic development?
No,
I'm good.
I'm good.
We have a motion to adjourn?
I'll
For
take,
the,
go ahead, you go first.
okay, for the planning board, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second that.
We have 2 seconds. Lil and Jason.
I'm doing the
All
minutes.
in-
I seconded.
Okay. All in favor? Lil,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Jim is an aye as well. We've adjourned our side of the meeting. I'll turn it over to you, Jay.
Okay, I'll accept the motion to adjourn the Economic and Development Committee.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. We'll go like he did. Brian,
Aye.
Aye.
Bill, aye, Jay, aye. So we got 3 ayes for us. Jim, Bill, do you want to chime in too, or since we got?
Jim's an aye. Thanks,
I'm an
everybody.
aye, But who seconded your, Bill, you were the first one, right?
No, I made the motion and Brian moved it.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great night, guys.
And Brian, if you look at your latest email, we just got another grant at 4 o'clock
Yeah.
today. Yeah, at 4 o'clock today. So it was involving PVPC for stormwater, which was probably, I don't think it's going to affect Bill at all, but we have a new stormwater permitting process that we have to go through for Mass DEP and EPA. And the Energy Committee, we had some money left over. So what we did is we applied for an MVP grant under the planning board, with them being the cognizant one, because they're going to handle the stormwater permitting official will be Dave DeRocher, but it has to be put into the zoning by the planning board. So we just found out at 4:01 today that got approved, in addition to this one here you're on, and in addition to the green community one. So we're looking for a grant writer when I leave. Can you replace me, Brian?
I don't think so. I'm still.
You're still recovering after 21 years, right?
Yeah, well, I got 2 companies I'm running, so.
Yeah.
Got time for time. What do you mean when you leave?
I'm counting my days. You have any companies with 5 or less employees?
No.
Okay. Because of
One's
that
up
micro,
16, the other one's 21.
right, because there's a micro business grant. I don't know if you're aware of this either, Bill. You got 5 or less employees, you can apply for the micro business grant for lost revenue up to $10,000, and that will be granted to you. So it's not a loan, it's a grant. So if you guys know anybody, like for an example, like Tanya's Spa, probably the Early Mug, Happy Days, the people who cut the people's hair, beauty salons, out of people's houses. I'm trying to get the word out to anybody and everybody possible, because the applications will be due this month, but there is a survey to fill out in the beginning to make it real easy on the micro business owners, because they don't have all the overhead to do it. And they fill out this survey, they'll tell them if they're qualified or not for the application process.
Do these have to be Granby businesses, Jay?
Yes, they have to be, well, that is actually no. I can send you it again, but Springfield, Chicopee, Northampton, and all the big communities were taking the money from the Small Business Administration. Well, when we put in for it, little guys get out of the way, we gotta process these big guys first. So we talked with PVPC, and we decided to develop a regional group. And since East Hampton had the largest population out of our regional group, it was East Hampton, South Hadley, Granby, Hatfield, Hadley. There's 6 or 7 different communities all involved. And we got $900,000 to put towards that. So if you're from any one of those communities I named, or it should be in that micro business memo I forwarded to you guys. Long as you reside in one of those communities, yes, you can apply.
Right.
So it's a regional thing for our 6 or 7 towns. But it's called the East Hampton Regional because East Hampton had the largest population of the applicants. Anything else?
I'm all set, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, but you know, we need to get the word out because I've been trying every way I can because, I mean, in Granby, there's a lot of tradespeople, plumbers, carpenters, electricians. They're all sole proprietorships, painters. These people all qualify. But how do you get the word out? And Brian, I think you would probably agree with me. One of the things that Granby has to improve more on is communication.
Mhm.
We have very tough communication with our residents and our voters.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do it. I really don't. All we have, you can post it on the website, but if people don't go to the website, they don't see it. I've been putting some of it out on Facebook, getting some people that way. Do we gonna try a robocall on this or what? You know, but again, if you're not signed up for the robocall, you don't get it.
Right.
So
Ever since we
communication.
ever since we lost contact with reporters, Springfield Republican or Highland Transcript or even the Belchertown Sentinel, Northampton Gazette.
Mhm.
One time we used to have all sorts. I mean, I had all sorts of reporters sitting in my selectmen meetings all the time. Today,
Yeah.
can't even get them to a town meeting.
Now,
Except for-
Granby doesn't even have a representative no more. We used to have one until COVID-19 hit, and then the Sentinel/Town Reminder, which is the same thing, condensed their people, and the person they had monitoring Granby was let go.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something more of a touch base with them and start hand feeding them the information, and hopefully they put it in those papers or whatever you want to call them.
That's about all you can do at this point, hand feed them, you know, write your own report or your own little, you'd be surprised if you write up your own little thing and send it in to them, they'll probably stay just about what you wrote.
Yeah,
They won't
I
even
mean-
take the time to adjust it.
I learned that a long time ago. If you want something done, do it your way. You're most likely to get it done that way and rely on other people.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about next Tuesday? We're scheduled for a meeting. Don't think we have a whole.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
But at around 6 o'clock, if that's what he wants to do.
Well, the only thing that I have to give you right now, further than you already know from this one, and the stormwater one, which really is not going to be purview to economic development for the most part, is the packets for our water pipe have been mailed out to all the property owners. Basically, South Hadley's looking for 40 to 50% property owners to commit to sign up for the water pipeline. All they have to do is say, they sign this form, say, yes, I'm committed to the water pipeline. And they give a South Hadley a check for $2,000, because that's what it costs to enter South Hadley's water system. But if for some reason the water pipeline does not go forward, because the state relinquishes the money they're supposed to give us, because we can't go forward without their assistance, then the money would be returned to the property owners, the $2,000. So I think you guys got a packet of that as well that I sent out. Or do you want me to start resending stuff? If you don't remember, there's a lot of different stuff.
I keep your stuff. Every time you send something, I keep it.
Okay. You all set too, Bill?
I think so, yes.
Okay, but you know, and like I say, Lil and then Jim, that's basically us. Lil's still on, but Jim has left. I don't see a real reason at this point in time to have a meeting next Tuesday. So unless something comes in by Thursday night, Friday morning, I'll probably send out an email canceling that meeting, unless you guys got something you want to talk about.
Next week, Next week I'll be down in Disney World. Just Barbara and I were taking off. And I know I have dinner arrangements every night at 6:30. So
Okay.
just so you'll know, I'm kind of out of it for next week.
Well, as far as the time goes, since I'm one of these retirees, shall we say, I can meet about any time. So we're not stuck on 6:30. I don't know what Bill's plans are or his commitments are, of course. And Lil, we already have moved our energy committee meetings to 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of waiting to 6:30 at night. So our times are negotiable if we have a reason to meet. You know, I don't like meeting if we don't have reasons to meet.
Right.
I have a meeting, just have a meeting.
Yeah.
From what he was saying, the next meeting of this committee will be on Tuesday, the 29th.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
Okay. So I'm fine that day.
Okay, I think that was that me, look at my calendar here. I know you can't, because we're scheduled on the 22nd.
Correct.
Well, how about if we do this? I will send out an email postponing our 22nd meeting to the 29th. And then if this one comes off, then we'll do it that way. How does that sound?
Fine.
That's fine.
And do you want to pick a time, Brian? And then,
With all honesty, the reason I'm in Atlanta is
To
I'm
get
having
away.
a checkup on my RV.
okay,
And so I end up, they take my RV at 7 o'clock in the morning, and when they're finished with it, they bring it back to me on the same property. And I stay in it overnight, or we stay in it overnight. So they usually bring it back about 5:30.
mhm.
So somewhere in there we have to eat, but we can eat after a meeting or before, it doesn't really matter. So if you want to stick with 6:30, probably would be a little easier, or 6
Okay.
o'clock. I could
That
do
way you
6.
can-
6
okay,
would be fine.
no earlier than 6. That'll give you a chance for you and
Yeah,
Barbara to eat.
because I don't have to have my RV.
Yeah.
Or my laptop. So,
What kind of RV do you have?
I have a 2017 Integra Anthem. It's 45-foot bus.
We're looking at get one of those Class B ones, the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll talk to you offline about any recommendations for that, because we don't want anything big. There's only 2 of us and we just moseying around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't really want to drive one of those 40-foot long buses around or anything like that.
So, you know, hey, stick a car behind me and throw another 13 feet. And by the time I get finished, drag it around 56 feet, I think.
Well, if I had a choice, since I have my pilot's license, I would do it that way. I can get there faster.
Drag the camper behind the plane.
No, but
You're laughing, Bill.
in helicopters, we used to sleep in the aircraft. Just put the cots. We get like litters for a medevac and we sleep inside it.
Yeah.
Travel around. Okay, then I guess we're all done. You still there, Lil? See if it turns,
I'm
yeah,
still
turn
here.
green. Okay,
I'm still here.
so
Hey, Will.
you
How
already,
come we can't see you, Will?
because she
Well,
turned it,
seeing I'm taking the minutes at the same time, not necessarily, no, all you're gonna see is the side of my head because I'm putting the minutes on my on my desktop.
I was just
I don't-
joking, Will. That's
I
what
don't
I
know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't always.
Incognito.
Okay, so Lil, are you got a problem with that? We'll put out a letter postponing the 22nd economic development to the 29th.
I
And
don't
then
have a problem with that. I can do that
and
if you want.
Yeah, okay. And then if they require us, we got one less day to do it. And then I don't think anything is gonna be that important that we can't push from the 22nd to the 29th.
Now, what time are you planning on? If I understand Ken correctly, he's gonna look at 6 o'clock for the September 29th meeting. Is that not gonna work with you, Brian?
That'll work with me. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
It's either, the only thing I'm just trying to forewarn you that either I'm gonna have my RV back or I'm not gonna have my RV back, so I think I can plan on 6 o'clock for that day.
Okay, and if for some reason, you can always just use your cell phone to call in on that number.
Yeah.
You would just show up as a caller like the other guys did.
But if you do, make sure you're by the water somewhere so we can hear the beach.
Anything you want to add, Bill?
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Bill, I got one question for you.
Yes,
Where can one buy a wall like that you have behind you?
that's actually all books. And I'm covering the books up because I don't want to show everybody all the books I got. That's a sheet over a wall.
Is that what it is?
I don't know, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but I don't need to show off all the books that I own.
Is it,
And this is a desktop computer, it's not a laptop, so it's really tough to angle it in a different direction. So I
Right.
can't angle it and have a different wall, you know?
So I only have one question for you. Have you
Yeah.
read all those books?
I'm gonna have to say yes. Yes.
man with a big mind.
I like to read.
Mhm.
So there may be a few that I haven't read, but the vast majority I have.
Good.
I like to read. And then I hate to
Okay.
throw them out.
Are you like Barbara? Barbara reads a book a day or every 2 days.
Oh, no, I'm not that quick. But
Oh,
in my
yeah.
younger days, maybe, but not now. I'm much slower.
It drives me crazy. I'll be on
Okay,
the same
well-
book for a month and she'll say, what do you?
Why don't we sign off now so I can call Kathy so she'll start recording what we're saying.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. See you
I
guys.
plan on, yep, be in touch for the 29th. Bye.
Take care.